shout out on the Investors Underground.
Oh, no
Hey,
way.
thank you. So he asked what tools I use, and I was like, well, obviously, yeah, I said you're in Inflast Research.
Nice, nice. Happy to hear that. Thank you. Hopefully it is useful. This is the way I thought in my head. The back test, it's very useful when we go on vacation on when we're off or when we're a psychological rut. Because if we have 5 strategies, in a perfect world, you want the correlation to be 0.2 so there's not inverse relationship. So if one is like a midday runner, the other one's a gapper, or one, basically the correlation should be 1. You come back from a vacation and then you just run your 5 different strategies and you can see this P&L was like going like this. You'll have one P&L going like this, and you'll have different. So then you already know which one's working, which one's not, because there will always be different strategies. But yeah, do you think would that help, JJ? Does that help answer that question, or do you think we still would be better? I guess we're gonna have a calendar.
No, it does. I just be like, if like some sort of just like, I don't know, summary of like the past week's action would be good for sure. And like things like multi-day runners, sometimes I lose track of what is like still running and still like something that's because it like I'm always keeping track of like the intraday gappers and runners. And I usually do a decent job of keeping all the charts up that are on multi-day runs, but it's easy to forget about them when they're kind of just, they haven't really done anything, but they're still up like say 1,000%. Because there's a lot of big opportunities with those, especially when those big charts are like starting to break down. But it's good to, yeah, the multi-day runners is another big thing just to see. Because that also is what can trigger like themes, is like when you start getting more of these like multi-day movers that are up a lot, that are belong to a certain theme, then yeah, it's good to be aware of all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about like what would be good in showing in like a dashboard, but just like the idea of having some sort of like a recap sort of summary of like past week or the past month or something like that.
Yeah, I think exactly what we're doing on Sunday recap basically. And I thought about that too. I thought about our calendar having a place where finding stocks that have the biggest range, because different things work on a different. There always will be range, and then you could just focus on, are we able to replicate that range? Because that's what we're doing the whole thing. We're really just trying to find range and risk management. That's how I have simplified it in my head. If we can predict range and we have good risk management, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get right into it. Oh, Aaron said he's coming in 3 minutes.
Aaron the plumber.
Aaron the plumber. Didn't he change his name to something else, like Elon? No, Elon the goat. Oh, man, that's crazy. What's been happening with that department? Okay, so today's goal, before we kind of continue, is to have these meetings as short. We always have this goal, but to have it short, and also for me personally, I want it to be actionable steps, not just for you guys, for me, but honestly, mostly for you guys, because you guys are actively trading. So there is 2 things that we're gonna do. So we're gonna run this simulation, which is anything that has more than 40% range, so we can pick up on stuff like that. And then I want to have another one. Let's just make that full intraday recap. Do you guys want to have a specific gap that you want to take a look at, like 60% or higher, or
Speak to me.
Yeah, 60 is good. 60, 50.
Pre-market volume 500K intraday? I like 60 better, to be honest, because it's in that way we get a good gauge. Okay, perfect. By the way, please, if there's anything that you guys want me to change or take a look at, let me know. Or we're not in 2026, are we? We are on June 8th. So we are for June 8th, then we're running this. Cool. Wowzers. 64 stocks that would range. That's crazy. Okay. You guys are on the screen watching?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even see that.
Oh, something I always forget to check too, like Roy from Arch Chat always posts this, but it's also nice to see the like, it's a chart that shows like the median behavior month over month, right? So you can kind of see like, oh, in like March it's kind of like tricky action, everything's kind of like going flat or like even slow dipping and then coming back. That kind of like, it shows at the bottom, right? And it has all these blue charts month over month. Where do you find that again?
I think that's market sentiment.
Okay. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's. So do you have to adjust anything, or it just shows at the bottom every time, right? In each stage. Yeah. Okay.
With a decimator from acute filter for prices, if you include sub one tickers and all that, because it changes kind of big difference.
Yeah. And here, so you can put less than 1 cent and stuff like that, depending. And you can also change the filter from 20 to 60%, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I gotta look at that tomorrow.
Why is the average gap value here 43% if you set the minimum of 60%?
No, I didn't. So this one we're looking for best opportunities. So I put 40% of the range. Yeah. So we're gonna quickly go over this. So this is like trying to identify stocks that have a range and see if we can replicate it. Oh, brother Aaron the plumber's here. Where's your camera, brother? And what happened? You don't like Elon the goat no more?
No,
Oh no, for real? No.
I like Aaron more.
Oh, okay. I thought you like something happened and then you know like.
No.
Okay, so guys, quickly we're gonna look at the top 5 biggest ranges on the upside, downside, and see how we can capitalize on it. This might be hindsight. I don't know how to pick this. Do you guys have any thoughts on how you could long this? I guess below VWAP, above VWAP.
I remember Ben was writing some message early on that temperature is long bias right on this. Yeah, I think the main reason was the daily chart looked very bad for short because there was no prior volume and it was a fresh IPO in also China with very cheap locates.
Okay.
You should zoom in on the part of the chart before it made its move. Yeah.
This? Why is that useful? This?
So we can see how it.
No, the trap below VWAP, basically. I mean, it looked dead after the first blow off. It looked dead, and then it went below VWAP, and this is when the shorts started to really add, probably.
Yeah.
At weekend.
I always like to go on the basis: are the shorts stuck? I could see short trying to short this, and then also done below being VWAP and below the open range below VWAP. This for short is an indication that there's some shorts in here for sure. And this is one of those things where it's like picture perfect. $8 open price and it goes and it could fade to like 2-3 if it has dilution. So this may be an entry potential. It's tricky. Okay. If you guys spot anything, we don't have to spend a lot of time. We are trying to make notes on RVYL. Tops out at 1250. For me, good setup could be either here, probably. But that
position was easy. Was not easy to find a good entry on the backside.
Yeah, they go in their top and they just go straight up and then they just go straight up.
Yeah, I think so. The best way for me to play it is below this level. Like if it stays below this, everybody here is begged. That's the only good indication. So this versus this risk. Entering here would be difficult because you're like, it could continue. The expected EV is not as good, and here in my books, in hindsight, a bit of information, I think this is always better. Like entering this versus here. But if I'm being very optimal, then I can blow it up. So just push. Anything here that you guys spot? Push out the open, just fade it. LYRA.
Is that day 2 on LYRA?
I think it's day 1.
Day 1.
40% range. I guess 30% range. Nothing. No ways. Nothing that comes out. Wow, this is difficult. I must liquidity hunt.
Yeah, that's where it's too short.
Where?
There's one paid breakout like 10:30 or 10:25. Yes. And the second is when it gets below VWAP.
Yeah, but then I think that's what I was thinking. But I guess this one didn't stop on. So the high here is 47.39 and the high here is. So if you didn't use high of the day and you use like a few cents, you would have stopped below. Difficult. Yeah, honestly, I just prefer. Holy smokes, what day is this? I remember JJ, you spoke with this. How the heck do you enter this? I avoided MSTR because it's just a pain in the butt. But how would you enter?
There's some good spot.
We're not using a 10-second chart like Ross. Where's your entry, brother? What is this? Okay, but do you know, like, how do you enter here? At open? $11 price? Or?
I didn't use it.
Oh, shit. What's your risk? What was your risk in here? Okay, so MSTR will make it difficult. This is a good mental note. This is an offering, right? I think.
No, that's another
liquidity hunt. So the underwriter is who's in? So keep a note of that. That's a good valuable. So one thing. What is the goal for me in my head? Find out previous patterns and see what variables we can find so we can have actionable steps for the next week. So Rivier, IPO, liquidity hunt, China, things like that. China names are tough and annoying, but this behavior, I would not be surprised if this happens. I am almost pretty confident that this will happen again. Stop hunt, China name liquidation. This is another one. So first liquidity hunt. I could see this being a short again.
But at least
By the way, soon, I don't know how soon, but in Flash Research, we will be able to make it so that you can play the liquidity event. So you'll get an alert when it breaks the highs, and those are really good risk reward, and we could catch the China name. So push off of the open, INM, this side of K and W, that's must. So these are the to be the biggest faders. Do you know why this one faded? The dilution or
I'm not sure that one traded much more.
OMH SNCI? Dilution? Do we know? Or what was the variable in here that we can... I think it's dilution play too. Yeah, it had an ATM, and also on top of that, they were really low in cash. So I think they could be an offering. I remember I was short. So this is low cash. I think they had less than 1 month of left. Offering potential and ATM. So dump the ATM and do an offering. Yeah. So this why? Yeah, because of the entry, right? How did you guys enter it? Yes,
are like at pre-market.
that's what I was thinking. That in conjunction with dilution.
I like to look for pushes, like strong pushes into the open, because I'm thinking that they want like retail to get hype, but that's just something I.
Yeah. So for me, entry for this one is difficult, obviously, but knowing dilution, it's definitely a trade we should. This pre-market for me is a good indication. Like it's just pushed right off the open, and then they are just. This is like they know they're gonna lose this money, but then you're gonna dump and short the ATM, potentially an offering. So this is a short that and stuff like this below VWAP in here. Honestly, you could use a G stop and be okay with it. If there's dilution, I also try to avoid low floaters, but in my head, like something turns off and it says there's dilution, it will be okay. If you get stopped out, you get stopped. So entry, I think this is where I entered. But it's 138% gap. 138% gap. They needed ATM. They needed cash. There were less than a month left, so they were gonna dump here for sure. Yeah. Me personally, being a bit biased, if I know if a stock is up 138% and they know they're gonna dilute, they're gonna dump. I think it's almost reverse engineering for me. Like I have to have. It's a must. If I know that it's gonna dump, like okay, it's gonna stop me at once, twice. I didn't know that equity line has a limit. Good to know. Yeah. Okay. You guys make a good point. Maybe I looked at it wrong and I was anticipating potential offering this, that. I don't remember. Some of this.
Either way,
I'm not trying to express myself, be forceful about it, but I think the more I have, I'm realizing that it's a number, like a stock is 138%. Like if you're wrong, you're going to lose. Like if you know you're going to make, if stock is 138%, whatever reason, let's say you're risking ranges, it could be lower if you're using price action. Like 30 to 50% is very possible on a stock up 100. Whether it pushes on above 650, okay, then you get stopped out. You risk the high of the day, you're wrong the second time. But the third time, that you could enter the third time. Like if it goes like this stop gets you stopped out, okay, stop out. Then it goes 657, and then it comes back below 650. Then you could short that, and then that makes it gives you a bigger range. This is one of those plays. I think for me, it's must. INM, this one. Anything that stands out for you guys? This right here, down here. Yeah, under VWAP is beautiful too. Because everybody here is bagged. This is a good setup. So this is a setup that I talk to Anand about all the time. So like if you're able to somehow catch this, or if it like pops here, like push and then fade. But below VWAP, this is a really, really bad. So if you could somehow enter at the top, whatever variable that you're using, and then you could do tier 2 below here, knowing that all of these guys, everybody here, very likely is in the low of the day or risking the open prices. So you could tier 2 this because you have range when a stock push. This is another one of my A+ setups. Anything else you guys notice? I also see that it has like 4 months of cash left. This is on 6/2, so Monday. Ben, Arsenal, Ben, Martin, anything you guys see in here that we can capitalize on?
And it looked clean below VWAP. If you wait till after 10, these ones, I think things are pushing off the open up.
And these stocks that are like, I'm surprised, the low floater plus conjunction with the 120% move, that's interesting thing. Notice again, 125% OGen. OGen, same thing, 2.5 months of cash left. This also had an equity line too. Wow, 06, two same. Okay, so bigger gap, equity line, low cash, fuzz. Trying to see without spending too much time. Push off the open, fade. Okay, let's look at the ones where, RSLS. Interesting. Wow, this must have been a shorts nightmare. Oh, one thing that used to happen. So this is a tricky ass stock. I bet a lot of. Did you guys lose money on this? Okay, so this behavior. Well, props to you guys for not losing money because RLS. Oh, you're right. 32%. This price action. One thing I've noticed back in the day, like if this was a 60% gapper, this would have effed everybody over because it's below VWAP. This is a short. Take a sort of stop line, does a liquidity event, and then pushes up, does a liquidity event below VWAP, traps short, pushes up into the liquidity event, liquidity event. So this is a very, very chop fest. The day after, very smooth fade, even though no volume. But that's the one thing I've noticed. Whenever stock becomes super duper hard, the day after, day two is much. So how do we avoid $20 stock? Okay, so this is one of the A plus setups, exactly like I was. These ones, I also, to be honest, I'm building something because I'm becoming a lot more data quant. So yeah, you wait for this, wait for some sort of a structure, risk this versus the highs or the previous structure, and then you add below. Same concept. But the best part is the business models like this, you can, if you're basically able to anticipate range because all of these guys are bagged. Once this goes below VWAP, now it becomes into the realm of 50-50 where the volume is above all these guys and sometimes the exit in it. Do you guys have anything that you noticed that's actionable steps we could use? Martin, I mean, how? But the problem with this is like, look at this information. I'm playing devil's advocate because I want to kind of learn. And like you see in here, this was technically the biggest red candle too. This was technically the biggest. I guess it's not so much of a candle, but this was the bigger red candle. So how do you have a way of defining? Does it have to be twice as big the average, or is it we buy right? Yeah, the average gap you could see 10 pushes into 1055 and then oh nice. This is the other thing. We haven't it shouldn't be tough, but you could. These guys are all the same. Whoever's running it, somebody has the shares and the human beings or creatures of habit. Nice catch there. This one not usable. This one's just failed breakout would be this. Above 5 goes below. I don't know how to trade this. Did you guys trade it? Anybody got this one? Oh, these are the midday runners. This is Arsenal, and I think Arsenal you got this thing.
That one I did not. No shot. SHOT.
PST 40%.
That one looks good, but I didn't get that one either.
But that's hard because this is short trap all day, 40% gap. So this for me, by the way, would be long. Ben, if you ever see this, please tag me. Oh, you did? We didn't. Did we lose money on it? Yeah, I was joking. Yeah, 100% I would have. No, I think I joke around a lot. I was telling JJ. But yeah, this is a very A plus nice short. So I long above VWAP reclaim, like I said, longing this, and I would risk the previous low, 3 cent risk, and then. But that makes it so difficult. I mean, I would have a trail stop. Actually, you're right. Good catch. But I could see myself trying again in here. I'm stubborn with. But this is a short trap. This washes. But the best way to trade this that I found is risking the previous candle's low. I think 3 minute, 5 minute. So if you're on here, risking this low candle. So let's see, the low is here. This is 42. So when the squeeze happens, it often doesn't. If there's a short squeeze, it doesn't often break the previous low. So that's a really cool. And then you can have some trail stop. But good RR, very good RR. Okay, anything sticks out to you guys for that one before we go into gappers? So that one was range, stocks with biggest range, so we could get, there's like 60 trades. This one only has like 16 gappers. So we're gonna quickly just glance through if there's any good edge. So this would have been a long VWAP, gotten stopped out. VWAP reclaim, risking this, that setup still works. Above $20 has been difficult. How do you avoid this? You just take the loss? Did you guys trade this?
I don't remember seeing that on scan. Is that a gapper?
Yeah, 60% gapper. 63. Wow. It traded 254 million. What's the rule that you have? Here, see if we missed anything. IRD. This one. Oh, this is also an equity line. 10 months of cash, equity line. Do you remember this one, JJ? I guess from at 9 a.m. You don't have a scanner in Flash? You have, I think it's live. I think so, yeah. Desktop notifications, entry notifications for your backtest, and now even your entry alerts. We haven't publicly announced it yet, but very soon. Like you can, just on the backtest, you can have your entries exit alerted, and you can give it like a buffer of like 15-20 seconds before. Not that it knows when it's going to come, but can ballpark estimate. Yeah, so this had dilution, and it had, okay, let's summarize this. What are you guys thinking? We can start with what was the best opportunity and how do we kind of capitalize on it? Like, is there any pattern that you saw in last week that we can kind of either technical pattern or fundamental pattern potentially use on the future? I can start. I noticed equity line. Maybe all the companies have equity line that 120, 130% gap push, equity line, low cash, basic 101. Those I have to the risk on. I think if I can just spread it out to have 3 bullets, that one is one of the rare situations where it's like I need to be in. That's the one thing I've noticed. So 120% gap or low cash. Another thing that I think is actionable going into next week, potentially big edge, even though we have banned a lot of the China tickers, is if there's a liquidity hunt, and JJ, being the smart badass person he is, also pointed out of the underwriter. So if it's a China name, it does a liquidity event, and we're able to short the locate or something like that, that could be a really good edge, because that's my second takeaway. The third thing that is very lucrative financially, but there may not be many setups for that, is where it pushes off the open and then gives you some structure to risk off of. The reason why I think that's very lucrative is like that could be a trade that you can make a 6 or a 10R risking like 1 or 2R, because you can have it anytime you can anticipate a big range, you can put tier 1, tier 2. If it pushes higher and then goes below that, in my head, I'm at telling myself that's equivalent to like trades. People are above that level, and it's either we're going to get squeezed or it's going to fade. But now it's kind of tilted in our favor. And because you can anticipate range, it's just much easier to make money. So those were my quick takeaways. Anybody else want to go next? The goal is to have actionable steps for next week.
I can share something that I thought was interesting. I just posted it in the chat for the general. It's essentially the chat in the chat for the video chat there. If you go on the chat, yeah. It's this and IRD I thought were very interesting. So you get like a really big push, like a 50% push in 5 minutes, and then you almost kind of get like a full round trip. I thought it was interesting. I'm just tracking it for now, but I think it's good risk reward.
Especially because what was the gapper? Or it had no gap?
IRD, the one you just had. I was looking up the chart for it. Just I don't have my mouse right now, so I'm moving a bit still. But you just went over IRD. I thought it was a similar setup, but that one, the press release came out like right before the open, and I think I heard someone else mention that when it's kind of pushing in pre-market, like right before, like a strong push, you can kind of get short below VWAP, and you know you have good risk reward. Not saying it's gonna work every time. I just think it's worth taking.
But I'm curious, the slope, do you know what the gap up percent was on this day? Or was there a gap up? Or was there no gap?
There was no gap on Loop. Loop just went 50% right off the open. And like I think it was like 2 minutes or 3 minutes in. So it was really fast. It was a parabolic.
Interesting.
Let me check the news.
Cool. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's an interesting setup. Parabolic setup, and then it goes below VWAP. I think that's a really, like that, maybe, I don't know if it's biased, but maybe not. Like to push that fast and then be right below VWAP is an indication that somebody's selling right off as they're pushing.
Yeah, by this time there's usually like a runner that's in play, a runner or two. I don't know. I believe in that theory. I don't know how true you guys might think it is, but when there's some other things in play, like main setup, something's gapping hard, I kind of look for like sympathy plays or like other weaker ones on the side to kind of, I don't know how truth it might be. I don't have a stat on it, so I can't speak for sure, but it's something I do look for.
Yeah, I think I look similar. If the sentiment is weak or setup or something happens, very similar aspect, or secondary plays are the same thing, yeah, it's makes it easier. Since you're talking Arsenal, do you have a takeaway from today? What actionable steps you could use for next week? We can use for next week.
Yeah, so I made notes here. So essentially, we look for pre-market high rejection and get short below VWAP, and don't fight it, because, like you pointed out, when the stock becomes difficult, usually the next day it's easy. Like Mullen, for example, if you kind of like, if I was more patient the first day, like I did kind of get bid up on it the first day, but the second and third, there was multiple days where you could have kind of made back the money. Even like Friday, it faded. It gave a nice fade, and no one's really watching it at that point. So you could just kind of set it up, get short, put your stop, and just look away completely. So I'm gonna do that with KNW too. I think KNW is gonna. It looks like it's gonna go on a run, so I don't want to get in front of it. If it looks strong, maybe even long it. But once everyone's died down with KNW, I think we're gonna get a nice fade on the way down.
Be good to check if it's if there's something more behind it. I haven't checked in that. Okay, awesome. Anything else?
Yeah, I also said look for press releases right before 9 a.m. plus and volume coming in to liquidate fade right off the open. So pretty much the same concept as IRD and Loop wasn't really a pre-market. They didn't really have news pre-market. I think they released news right at market open. But the concept is the same. Like look for like that volume to come in fast right before open and to kind of catch people off guard.
Yeah, that's the variables are interesting. I know some people that I play those variables. Actually, Prisfirma is one of them. That I have quite a few. It's like an old thing. By a certain time, stock pushes a certain percent, or a certain percent move away from leave up, or a certain it's like parabolic. Okay, awesome. So is that all? Anything else?
No, that's it for now.
Who wants to go next, Brother Ben? Well, let me see. So I shorted this as well, but now this one. So ironically, I entered both. I was short this day as well. I was short this as well, but I also was short this day that I got my. This day I thought something similar would happen to this because of this failed liquidity. So you walk us through how do we capitalize on. Tell me which. Okay, so let's walk through. This is the day, right? The big fade happened. So how did you enter? I told you how I entered. Well, how would you have entered? This breakdown of this? Isn't that hindsight? Or do you think it's valid? Why is this a good breakdown? But I think that happened very much closer than at the end of the day. Am I wrong? Did it happen at like 1 p.m.? I assume that SMCI was from ages ago, right? So that's how you would enter it. I'm gonna let you speak, but if you want my quick takeaway, I love the daily. So this was NVIDIA basically where I had a position in this so that they could look at it. But this I love, as you know, liquidity event on daily goes above and clears out and below. So liquidity event above this, liquidity gets set up and signed. For these ones I love. I shorted it this day, as you can see on the 15-minute time frame. I think somewhere here, 120, 125. Yeah, 125. I was short 125, and I think either 130 or 1. And then I just held it all day. And the next day I added it. But like one was intraday. And you said this day, how did you short this? Down here?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you risk entering in the breakdown of these candles? The green candle low? But what exactly? Are you just watching the tape as it gets to here? Or is there specific that you're like, well, I suck at breakdowns, but I could see. But what about this? Would this not be a good breakdown? Because you see the lows here? You don't see the good break. Track you. CRVW. Okay. This today, right? Man, I feel like a grandpa. You know, how do you use technology? I don't use it as much now. So we were saying, I guess this is this. How do you consider a breakdown? How much consolidation do you? So I was saying, what about this breakdown? So this was at 10:15. So this you wouldn't consider as 1 or 2 hours. So this is not a good enough breakdown. But I mean, this is the break of this low. I don't know if like I suck at. What do you mean by that? Oh, okay. So this is the pivot. Would this be the pivot? Wouldn't this be a second pivot? Interesting. So that's another opportunity. This is another thing. It was very difficult in here. As you can see, in the morning it did a liquidity event. So this should have been a really and it had a very, very high. So this you cannot. This candle here, very high in comparison to other candles. You could see the daily, like the 15-minute candle or whatever. It's very, very high elevated. So I think a lot of people positioned in short whatever for this, and then I did a stop hunt this day, but then it grinded out and it couldn't really squeeze it. But this made it difficult. When this happened, the day after, I actually played a 5-minute range breakout. So this one, I had some short from yesterday, from this day, because the heavy candle volume in a bigger time frame was on a red candle, and any candles after that was very much weaker. Like as you can see, it's breaking out. There's not much volume. So what would have happened? It was just one scenario that this gaps up into 70, or sorry, like 180, 200, something like that. And then it does a 5-minute range breakout. And or a second scenario would be that this volume is just empty. So this is not short. This is somebody exiting the long. And the next day you would have it comes in the mid range. So everybody here, all this candle, all this volume, if it does a 5-minute opening range breakout, it would have faded. So I too think this is a very good opportunity. And my second trade I took was below VWAP, the high here, and I did really well. And I think I covered like a chicken shawarma at 135-ish because of fear. There was a reason, but I'm still holding a little bit. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead. So that was an opportunity. What else? Was this the best opportunity you said you had? Where's the failed breakout? This is a failed breakout. How is that a failed breakout? Oh, these lulls. By the way, I don't use these indicators. I haven't used 2 or 3 years. Anything else? What was the gap up in this day? And this stock actually had an offering. Oh, nice. And you covered into the wash? I think we were after the offering shorted and then covered into the plus. Anything else? So the stuff that we did, in my eyes, so we should always try to have actionable steps, even though it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But the recap that we did today, or the recap that you did for yourself, the stuff that you went through, what actionable steps can you, or what can you take forward into Monday or next week? Capitalize. One thing I learned: if the market's weaker, you can short the stocks that are 60% or something. That's what else? What other actionable steps or setups or steps that you? Anything else? Anything related to last week's price action that you could? Ben, you're done. Well, at the start with Ben. No, we're gonna go one by one because this is the most important stuff. We could go to everything. I look at actionable steps. I'm like, if I was in your guys' shoes, what would I want? I want to know what anybody would do going to the next week. Kind of get the brain. But Ben, you're done for sure. There's nothing else in your brain that you would utilize for next week. Sorry, JJ, do you mind if Martin goes next? Because Martin had a thought.
Oh yeah.
No, one by one, and then we will all talk smack about rigor. Okay, well, brother Martin, what's your takeaway from the recap? What actionable steps can you take? So had they pushed into 30 or something, 30, 31? Yeah, I was thinking intraday if this pushed into like 30, 29, risking this level because everybody. Yeah. But yeah, I think midday runners, I agree. Overall, whenever stock is up like 600, I think we have to keep it on radar because all we're doing is we're able to anticipate that and just use risk management, be a net expected value. What else, Brother Martin? What else from today's recap that you could take away? But reiterate it if you want quickly, just so that, because we'd be surprised how every person thinks differently. But if we're all like, this is the takeaway, that kind of reiterates in our brain. And by the way, you kind of sold me because I wasn't sold on trading midday runners. When you mentioned the stats that, hey, there's 64 of them, while the gappers were only 16, I was like, yo, what the heck? I'm resharing again because I was like, and remove the midday runners. So maybe stocks that are, and then just see.
Is there any way, sorry to interrupt, but is there any way Flash can detect midday runners or no?
Yeah, we could. For sure we will. Yeah. We did. But the problem is that incorporated midday runner and gapper. So if you do like 35%, then that kind of doesn't separate it. So I'm trying to see, because yeah, as you know, I biasly, I dislike midday runners because I'm just really bad at it. But now I'm trying to see if I can find or edge in it. Yeah. I'm not NIBF. No, you're right. That's why. And as I was saying earlier, the more I get into quant, we need to have inverse. You need to have strategies that have an inverse relationship. So it makes sense to have this in auto. Like this is invalid, but it says it has a range of 24%. I don't know. I don't think that's tradable. Now Rigger's on voice. He's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna long list these. Now Rigger, go to be part of it. Yeah, you have to turn your camera on, brother. You gotta see that beautiful.
I'm not sure.
Oh, so for today,
Biggest opportunities, I guess.
so bro, we always are trying to evolve, make our thing better. But the idea is like biggest opportunity. We go take a look at it, and we try to see, obviously with hindsight information, how could we have entered it. So if you have on voice 6-7 good traders that are good performing, if all of us are like, well, you could have entered here, you could have risked this. So it's not just hindsight, but like repetitive. And then we dialogue, why did that happen? And then we also use flash research to find like the biggest stock that had the biggest range move. And we look at it, is it fundamentally, what are the variables that we could cause that? And in my head, I personally, what can I take away from past, like in next week, what variables has to happen? I'm just like spitting out, recapping as a group base. But we're always growing, we're always advancing. A lot of times it goes much longer than anticipated. And then sometimes traders are like, yo, I don't blame them. They're like, it takes too much time. So we're trying to be short about it. And then we have a brother, Adam, that comes in. Welcome, brother. Turn your camera on, man. You can't have 3 people. Sorry, so Rigger, go ahead. Yeah, that's a rough recap. But we're always open to improve.
Sure. So you guys know, I'm actually a lot, but nail all the week. I don't have.
Are you sharing a video? Sorry, are you sharing a video or you posted somewhere? Oh, pre-market plans.
Yeah, just to have an idea. The biggest long, Nvidia organized 3 days. Yeah, I'm not sure. Besides KNW, and it came back.
So yeah, 100%. So I think if you want, try to think of like if you're comfortable sharing. Like we're very open with our stuff. Like why you took the long, what was the kind of the variable, and is it replicable, stuff like that. But yeah, I appreciate you. Take your time, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But yeah, no problem at all. But oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Oh, I actually longed that one. Rigor, I think I longed it with you. Did you only long it? Why isn't it showing?
I was a little late. It felt really, especially
So day one, day two, these
But
are
that
very
would
good
make-
setups. So when I look at full quotation, somebody can't really buy 100 million certain stock, right? Has to force the stock on the other side. There's a really good article written on it. So in my opinion, I think as retail, we think there's infinite amount of like naked locates and stuff like that. But mathematically, I think JJ probably has, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think usually 2x, 3x is the amount of shares that could be. So if the float's like 1 million because somebody has a position against it, that position. So float rotation to me matters because if the stock has traded 2-3 times, so I look at it balancement. There's one in like the lady that closes her eyes. In the left hand side, you have dilution and outstanding shares, and on the right side, you have the number of volume. And back in the day, like way back in the day, we built like a volume for. So I haven't used Thinkorswim in freaking 5 years, but you can see this was built like maybe years ago. I don't know. So if a stock has 5 million shares to dump, the float is like, or the outstanding shares like, but the stock has traded 150 million, then that kind of invalidates and the dilution aspect just because it has exchange hand. But I mean, there's so many ways to.
the one of crispy trade pepper scalpers, and with the amount of volume, slowly not. So it sometimes I sit
And how strong it is, at least choppy.
when you say it like that, I tend to long if something is roughly 11 a. So I tend to try
At 11 or after 11?
after 11. Usually I'll try to. I assume it's gonna be if I think it's harder on something that already gone per. It's almost like there's a time to dip. It's very similar to because it's got a bounce. I usually tell people that term for it's like a measured.
By the way, I noticed art side.
Yeah,
Rigor, so one of your setup, which makes a lot of sense to me, is a low nano float. Somebody's some bigger person that's buying all of the sector, less tradable. Anything else? Any other best long setups for like what? I assume there's like 4-5 that you use.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite one that you don't mind sharing?
yeah. I'll try.
See what
Oh, it's
you're posting in pre-market plans. What's your risk in 32 cents on them? And we buy.
but I'll try to risk it.
And is that because of the green candle in here?
Yeah, usually the bottom. If there was a wick, I would try to risk. I would say 80%. Anytime I'm long, but if
When
I'm
you-
early,
Ben is asking, Aaron the plumber, this at 36 cents. What was your risk in here? Because there was no wick
I'll show you.
in here. I think
Was it?
that's what you're asking, right? Yeah,
Yeah. So I guess it was around like.
yeah, because that's where shorts would. Then it would be a liquidity when
Yeah, some
goes below 32 cents.
Sometimes I do also if I think it's
How? Why would you long Foxo here? It's a 1 minute. So I did a failed breakout, but how do you know it's gonna not continue?
I'm not sure. I think I long. It might have done that, but often
But usually you don't step in front of this stuff, do you? Like if it does a failed breakout, do you have sometimes enough conviction that you just like, yo, it's a failed breakout?
it depends. So sometimes I'm it's like a fake long trap. I would try to.
How do you exit?
Usually sometimes it doesn't happen, but usually after when something break out one range, like if I try not to draw the range of the excluding the usually that's
So
and whether or not it keep going higher.
okay, so this example on WY, you're not looking at a 1 minute, looking at consolidation. So in here, are you able to see my screen? So 32 cents to 25 cents, so the second 9 cent range. So 44 cents to this, it's like a 9 cent range. So when you're longing here, from here you're looking for 9 cent range from your entry.
That's why
or from your like a breakout.
and I always it's usually the bottom. Obviously sometime I mid went all the way to.
So roughly from your entry, 9 cents of the range will essentially be like the ATR of the consolidation. Well, it's the same thing. So
Yeah.
at the 9 cents, you start selling. But you said you don't look at the tape.
I look at the tape when I
No.
see like the lower the time. I think that's where it's like you want an if the whatever you saw like hyper scalpers a lot. They do trade and they take whatever they. So I think although when something is pushing up at some point that whatever agenda and probably slowly dumping and the tape usually
I think it depends on the style. There's some traders that sometimes they look at a certain spot. If this level, if it should be soaking, is it soaking or is it? But there are definitely short sellers, that don't look at.
a few more.
Oh, you got a few more examples?
Also what it was or even half the
As long as it makes money. What else?
I think this one is at the tail end of it. After, but I still think it's
Do you have your? If you don't mind sharing, do you have your candle chart?
on which one? Tradervue, but I actually took so I missed the edition, and then I tried to dip. It got washed before open, and I tend not feel like it's very risky.
Wait, so you're not swinging this?
Well, I was talking about when it reclaimed. So one of the thing based on data, there aren't that many. So when something that try to put usually after if it reclaim again,
Yeah, this is a really good
it's
sale.
really good. So there's a lot of
But what is your trigger entry? Is it usually above VWAP or is it?
if once it try to push the candle, that would be where I would
This in here?
within the
So I long them above VWAP. This is where I think exact same concept where it's like there's a lot of shorts all day and they hold into the close of it. So the highs. So if it reclaims VWAP and it holds above, so I would be buying. Usually there's a bit of below VWAP. I'll buy that previous structure. And I think it has a high expected. And if it works, it gives you like, so the range expands massively. And there are times that the range is super. That's interesting.
This one I think with low volume, I think it has a good chance. And then if it curl back again, if I'm swinging, yeah.
I heard you're Canadian. Somebody said.
No, I live in one. Yeah, liquidity is in.
Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? Feel free to share. But man, it went from 5 to 14. I guess how did you?
Oh, I love.
Phase 3 data, yeah. Phase 3 data, merger data, it gives a really good.
Yeah. Also, yeah. So there's a bunch of variables. Yeah, I actually tried a long hell a little bit.
You got fill on the daily chart, or what do you mean? You're saying, are you asking me if I look at daily levels?
Oh, the daily. Although that one what was the highest one?
Can you post the daily chart? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So you use this as a gap fill. So for me, gap fill is usually like whatever the gap is. So the gap fill in here,
Yeah.
200 over under.
This one could turn into.
Yeah, if it has, if the valuation or if it does a strong offering on a phase 3, and it goes from fundamentally, it goes strong offering play. Let's say LIRA right now for 30, 40 mil. The pricing happens at like $19, $20. And what that would do, rigor, is this would actually push the stock higher because there's an open auction whenever they fill the books from fundamental level. So people were like kind of bidding to be like, hey, I'll buy it at like $6, $8. So all the people that didn't get filled didn't get the allocation. Did you play long in here? Did you post your chart?
I can't remember how.
If you traded on the bid push,
And there's been really good long since like.
yeah, there's a very
A lot of things are pretty easy to see because everything was run with it felt risky even though just long everything. But this year it's one really strong and keep allowing it. But yeah, this one was.
I think there's a very one thing the correlation, even though the traders that they all trade differently, the correlation is very, very strong. I'm not surprised that you mentioned that's been really good for long because shorts have not been performing well. Regardless of the traders are, but on average, in terms of the P&L comparison to what it was, it's been inverse correlation in short. I try not to think. I think at beginner stages of even shorts, even long, I'd say it as a joke, but it's just a lot of traders stick towards short because I think back in the day, it's like a wave where it's, I think 3 months of shorts, longs just like rip shorts face and get smoked out. So the wavelength is always in my head 3 months to 1 month, 3 months short. When it like on average, the cycle has also shifted and contracted much more. So it's almost like 1 month this, 1 month that. Like it's much shorter. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, I actually talked to them and we I think things have trying to like it's heavily diluted. You could probably hold both, and some things I usually call like rather than holding for full fed.
How do you determine the obvious methods or to how many runners? Do you have any other cool ways
It
of
used to
thinking about the
be
cycle?
based off data. There's not a lot of so before when things start even though there's
It's around the corner.
that was it's one of the indicators. They hold it. Everybody's holding when a couple tickers start running really hard. And this year, I thought KDLY all day. That's when I thought 3-4 days, just one ticker kind of reignite. Maybe for one twist, things start running again. It's been really hard to. I don't think I could.
Yeah, it's been difficult because of such a good shift. But to recap what you just said, every 3-4 days there is a ticker that like blows off shorts, and strong momentum cycle lasts for 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, although almost every day. I mean, I'm sure you guys see it. And that's really the single out. There's no point like a why stop, whatever. I don't think you have to be able to. Usually, after you can almost.
And what is that telltale sign? Just it's either not washing or it's above, like it has made like above the opening price or 5-minute range, stuff like that.
Could be the pattern, a bunch of rejections that kept holding up. Maybe it's the volume. When things fade, for a good period of time.
You said when things fade, it trades a lot of volume.
It trades
If it fades,
and zoom in and look at the general, the strong one.
I could see it making sense because it has because that last comment, I think that there's detailed, requires context. But what does make sense is like if it has a failed breakout and it's holding and consolidating, then the brain is like, okay, what are you waiting for to wash? Because it's like a signal for wash, So it invalidates that signal, and that long setup makes it's a failed breakout. It should wash because statistically speaking, like 70% of the volume is traded in small cap within 45 minutes. And if they're going to use that volume to wash it, and it should freaking wash, it shouldn't consolidate, go sideways. So I could see our brain saying, hey, you know what? This is a ticker that wants to run because it has given a signal that I'm going to do X, but it's not doing X. So now all of the other people that are systematic algo traders, including myself, then and that all of them are already in, or traders that are in discretionary as well using their entry trigger point, all of that becomes invalidated and they need an exit. And then if you have people that are longing it, now all of a sudden there's no volume, continuously goes high.
Yes, that's exactly. And whenever I look at and when something, I'm actually always like if something does the rejection candle, no, keep fading.
You want to know something interesting? I think the same way when it squeezes. So there's a setup we have that we talked about earlier, where it pushes off into 10 a.m. and my brain thinks the same way, where it's like please push into 10 a.m. because all of that volume that kicks into play, and then if it like creates a structure and it fades, everybody that has long that volume they'll need an exit. Same concept. It's like everybody that long needs to exit, and now you can anticipate a bigger range. We as a group, or I believe that as a trader, we need two components. We need to be able to anticipate range, and we need to have good risk management. When you have that, you can make money. So it's very interesting. And it's actually, if you want, I can show you. It's one of our really good setups. Which one was it? Guys, do you remember that we talked about? Was it WeBuy? Yeah, I think it was WeBuy.
Oh, actually.
Yeah, so we are actually the exact opposite. So this push here, what we look for, like I kind of get excited if a stock either has dilution trigger or if it has a historical behavior. So if you go to ticker analysis, you will see a repetitive pattern. So if you go to WeBuy, this is a very cool tool. Like it's biased because I'm one of the founders. You can see on average, it tops out at 10, 10, 50. This combines all of the chart. So some of the guys waited and put 10, 10, 45, let the price action dictate that it was top heavy. And now everybody that has longed. So in here, I think the VWAP goes all the way to here, pushes higher. This if you're or you could short this, risking this. Tier 1, another tier that you can add confidently where your expected value becomes higher is when it kind of goes below VWAP. And I think this was here. So it pushes in here, and then you have some sort of, like you're letting other people guess the top. As a professional short seller, quote unquote, wait till other people guess. What I love the most about this is that I can anticipate this range. So shorting somewhere here or here, risking this or risking that. Shorting this below VWAP gives an extra edge Because what happens here, at this point, everybody that has bought this and bought from the open will need an exit. So when they're exiting, it's going to create an extra range. And very often this makes a
Yeah.
really nice range.
I guess it's just when I'm adding.
Outside of taking profits, consolidation, what's another way that you take? Because that's the one thing I kind of struggle with. I think I'm decent. I'm a one-trick pony, to be honest, and I love it that way. There's one setup I have, which is below VWAP, shorts are trapped, or actually take the same trade as you, which is failed breakout, and then at 70% of that range, if it reclaims that range, that's when I enter. And because if there was a real supply kicking in, it shouldn't. If it's at 75% of the percentile of that ATR range, like in here, if I was looking for a long setup, I would actually be longing here near where you sold, something like that, because for like I could see shorts. Well, this is the one then, so I don't know. How do you take profit outside of that range? Do you have another way?
I like to think that the profit, like, it's gonna cover, like, if it just does an actual, like, you look at the chart that I started taking. Always think of, even when I'm thinking I stand to lose, if it's keep going, like, for me, I usually call it out, and then I'll hold a little more. Sometimes I add and keep moving my risk up, and it's sort of like, if you look at a lot, but the way I trade, half the time it's almost like, and then chill stop. Right, missing that little the way that I trade, where I keep longing. So my last,
That makes sense.
but for me, especially in small cap, when I looked at it and then chill stop out at the.
I hate to make
'Cause I
this
could be
comparison, but it's like Ross. He trades until he's wrong, and then
Although Roth,
yeah, I try not to shame anybody, but that's his pre-market and subscribe to e-stock, so
yeah, manufacturing.
and cushion off
So
with the volume coming in. Disturbing, to say the least.
And also, if he stops out, usually trades a lot. I don't have anybody that I can't tell anybody pretend that I'm buying.
For longer targets, I guess you're saying essentially it works like a chill stop, because you're like, hey, you have a good pulse on the market, and that, like, where's the flow by you getting in low.
I think as that was the volume, it felt like.
And what made you think that you can hold for all? Are you able to localize?
And it did that. That's when I had an idea. If there's something, there's a like BAOS, pretty much all of them aspects.
Which 27th of
I actually assumed, but this one was the news. The news just sounded too good. Like that, it was. So I thought this was T-non BAOS liquidation, because technically it's because I was telling my I use I usually I'll try to get it within like 5 seconds.
this tool has user for news or user for everything? No, but do you use it for news or do you use it for anything?
News for the Mascanzi, because TOS alert for some reason. Sometimes it doesn't alert.
Yeah, no, TOS has a delay. How are you guys feeling? You guys want to wrap up, summarize it? You guys want to continue?
I gotta get going now. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Appreciate your time. We'll try again next Sunday. We'll try to make it less than an hour or shorter. Martin, you leaving too?
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I can stay longer. Aaron, you gotta go or you gotta stay? Thank you, Martin. I appreciate you, brother. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. We'll see you I'll see you Monday. You're talking about. I mean, it's a tough short. So as a short seller, I think even though this was wrong, I always like to go where I would, like, without being biased, where would I have stopped out with my logical normal trading. So taking this short in here would have been, it's a loss, but it would have been about shorting this area here below VWAP, because now all of a sudden people that are here would be down. And the other thing that I try and do this day, I look at, so I think this would be, the reason for that is because 17 million candle in here, and then you have all, and it pushes off. I think 219, I hate to say this, is like if you'd run that trade where you try to catch the top so many times and stuff like this, and the reason why it gets shown is because very often if you're shorting in this, I mean, you could say, well, there's a failed breakout, but it's not like a what, last minute, like, because the same thing happened here, right? Breakout. Oh yeah, this is, I swear the whole time I thought I was like, you're a young guy, watch some stuff. But yeah, I see your what was your risk? The line? Is that a VWAP line, or all the people that were short bias earlier on, they would get in that? If you guys made it so far, that means you liked it. Click subscribe. Let us know what we could do better. Take care. Thank you.